Alright, what's going on everyone out there on YouTube? NES Ruler, and welcome to a brand new review. And this time around, we'll be checking out a film that was sent to me review by Flicker Alley, and you can pick this up on Blu-ray at all your favorite online retailers. It is a film from the year 1922, a rather legendary film in the history of cinema. It is Erich von Stroheim's 1922 million-dollar epic Foolish Wives. So this movie has such a really interesting and fascinating backstory. You guys don't know who Erich von Stroheim is. He's just this crazy dude who basically came over here to America and fabricated this character of a soldier from Austria. And basically he never broke this character for his whole entire life. He stayed in this character in real life, mind you, and it wasn't until the 70s that a film historian dug into von Stroheim's background and who he really was, where he came from in his life, and the legend of Erich von Stroheim began. So he's just a really interesting, offbeat, crazy character. Who made this really crazy movie that has a crazy history as well, just as crazy as he is. So like I said, this was the first million-dollar film to come out, released by Universal. This is the third film that von Stroheim did for them. He basically came here, did some jobs, and then head to LA, where he supposedly started to work under T.W. Griffin, and ultimately he made his way down to the Universal backlot, where he started to become a character in World War I propaganda films, where he would play, characters from the Axis army. So basically, he became known for playing these awful, horrible characters, and sooner rather than later, he was approached by Universal to direct his first film, and after a few successes, he ultimately landed on making this film. And basically the film started off as being like 6 hours long or so, and ultimately von Stroheim had to edit it, and he basically got it down to like 3.5 hours when it first premiered. But when it premiered, the movie was such a disaster that he cut it even more, and now we're down to this version that is 147 minutes, which is a version that basically has been seen since the film has come out. But there's so much hours and hours of footage that got cut from this movie, probably for a good reason, because Stroheim was just absolutely crazy and he would shoot anything and everything, and ultimately none of it made sense to the narrative that he was trying to tell. And we'll get into that story in a little bit. But ultimately this movie was a disaster and almost bankrupt Universal, because Stroheim was just crazy, and he went into the middle of the desert and built a life-size replica set of Monte Carlo, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's the most expensive set at the time that they built, and he was so OCD and crazy about attention to detail that the bill just kept rolling up and up and up and up, and that's how we have a $1 million picture. So von Stroheim stars in this movie. He basically plays a Russian thug who lives in Monte Carlo with his two cousins, and they're scam artists. Basically what they do is they prey on vulnerable women who live in Monte Carlo. Von Stroheim is a very persuasive dude. He gets into women's minds, and he becomes their love affairs. And ultimately, as he builds these relationships, he ultimately ends up with some kind of sob story that makes them give him money, and then him and his two cousins kick him to the curb, and they pick up on the next woman. So this movie's really all about karma and von Stroheim being a real SOB. Well, one day a famous American and his wife come into town, and von Stroheim, of course, preys on that right away as he starts to go after this very prominent American lawyer's wife. Well, they build a relationship, and von Stroheim, being his charismatic self, ultimately becomes entangled in her life. And then towards the end of the film climaxes, because we learn that von Stroheim's character was also particularly so fooling around with this maid, and he promised this maid that he would marry her, and of course this American wife shows up to his crib, and things start to go downhill from there because she's obviously jealous and she snaps. So this movie, like I said, it's all about karma. Von Stroheim is just an awful, awful character in this movie. He is such a scumbag, and how he manipulates women in this movie is just absolutely crazy. And you could tell that he was just an absolutely insane figure, and he was probably just playing this character as himself, because from what you learn about this movie and features and things like that, he was really like this, in real life. So this movie, like I said, because it was shot, so much was shot, it was hard to piece together this movie. There's only 2 negatives that survived, one that's from Italian and one that's from a 1928 version that Universal was going to release. They were going to release the film in 28 with a soundtrack, but that version never got released. But the version that Universal kept in their vault was this 1928 short and sound version. So basically what Flicker Alley did, and the Museum of Modern Art and the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, they basically pieced it together, what they could understand what the full length was, because the 1928 negative was obviously the better condition print. So basically what they did was they pieced together the 2 prints, and then they went through liner notes, reviews, press photos, to try and piece together the film the best that they can. And ultimately we have this version. Now this is not the first Blu-ray that's come out of this movie. There was one from Kino a couple years ago. That is just basically off of the 1928 Universal print. This one uses both negatives to make a more complete version of the movie. And it shows a brand new 4K restoration from, like I said, the Museum of Modern Art, as well as the San Francisco Silent Film Festival. So brand new 4K print of this one. It looks great. You could tell the differences between the 2 prints. The Italian print does not look as well preserved as the 1928 sound unreleased Universal print, but at least they went in there and they put the effort to try to make the most complete version that they can. This movie has a lot of coloring and tinting towards the end of the film that had to be restored. Looks absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of fire effects towards the end of the movie that were painstakingly restored frame by frame by hand. Absolutely great. The movie looks absolutely fantastic. Once again, Flicker Alley's doing God's work with releasing these restored silent films. I've said before a couple times when I've reviewed these silent films for you guys, I'm really into silent films this year. I'm really into watching them and learning more about early film history. And this is definitely one of the early crazy ones. So, nice package here from Flicker Alley. You have your cover with Mr. von Stroheim right there. And then on the back, then inside you have your DVD and your Blu-ray, as well as reversible cover arts. And it also comes with this nice booklet. There's Mr. von Stroheim himself. So, it just talks about the restoration, how they were able to reconstruct the film from all these different pieces of newsreels and things like that. So, just a nice booklet about the new score, which is awesome. So, just a really nice booklet here from Flicker Alley, which, of course, they always do a really fantastic job. So, yeah, really nice release here from Flicker Alley. Once again, restoring silent films and making them be able to be seen by film lovers. Just doing amazing, amazing work. So, Foolish Wives, really interesting film with a really interesting history. It's not the greatest film. It has its problems and it has its issues narratively. Some things don't even make any sense whatsoever. Maybe that's why they tried to reconstruct it. But ultimately, I feel like the importance of this movie and the history of it, and the story that Van Stroheim was trying to tell was trying to be a little bit more of a provocative, adult-themed story. So, you know, it kind of pushed the boundaries in a lot of sense in that direction. So I do give him credit in that sense. So I don't think it has the most interesting characters or the most interesting narrative, but I still think it has enough going for it. And Von Stroheim's just such a greasy, sluggy character that I feel like you guys should check this one out if you guys like early cinema. So that is my review of Foolish Wives from the year 1922. If you guys like this review, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/NESRuler22. And you can follow me on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/NESRuler22. Hope everybody's doing well. And I shall talk to you guys later. See you guys.